Hello everybody, in today's video I'd like to give you 10 tips to have a happier and more productive life. And I have come up with this list with a couple of different sources. One is things that have worked well for me in my own life, and two is things that I have uncovered during my reading. I like to read a lot of books and to watch videos and see documentaries on this type of a topic. So this is the list that I have created for myself, things that work best for me, and I'd like to share them because I think they would also work for you. My name is Dawn Dickinson, and the channel is all about living your best life. Okay, tip number one is for you to develop a positive attitude and a positive outlook on life. And one of the ways that you can do this with all of the things that get thrown on us every single day from what we listen to with our friends and watching the news, it's easy to go down the negative path, but it's better if you choose a more positive outlook. And you can do this a couple of ways. One is just by spending a little bit of time every single morning or in the evening before you go to bed, coming up with a list of things to be grateful for. It could be things that happen to you during the day, or things just in general. Like I often will do a list. I sometimes keep a journal. I think doing a journal, a gratitude journal, is very helpful, where I might say, oh, I'm grateful that I got to see my daughter today. I'm grateful that I have a nice home to live. I'm grateful that I have a successful business. So that kind of thing. So if you're looking towards things to be grateful for, that helps you develop a positive outlet. And then other thing is to avoid the what if scenarios of things that are coming up in your life. If you've got a job interview, say tomorrow, avoid the what if this happens and what if they don't like me. Instead, think of it's more likely that, oh, what if they like me, you know? So go more towards the positive, try to dwell on the positive and not the negative, and that will work out better for you with your life. Number two is to work on and to cultivate meaningful social relationships. Try to strengthen the relationships that you have with people around you who are positive and who are looking out for you and your best interest. Always good for you to develop good relationships, of course, with your spouse, with your children, with your parents, with your siblings, if you can do that, and with your friends. But sometimes people in your own family can be a little bit toxic. Sometimes I see that with siblings, that they're competing with each other or saying nasty things to each other. So if you've got these nasty people in your life, it would be wise to kind of distance yourself from them, and to try to spend more time on the relationships with people who are looking out for your success and your best interests. So it's important to develop these meaningful, positive social relationships in our lives, and that will make us happier in the long run. So number three is to let go of trying to control the people in your life. Now, this is super easy to do, especially with your children. Now, I don't want you to think it's like, oh, you know, drop kick your kids and not give them any guidance. That's not what I'm saying. It is important to give guidance to the people you love, especially your children, because they're younger and they're trying to find their way in the world. But sometimes you give them advice and they don't take it. Like, for instance, if you want your son to go to college and become a doctor or an accountant, and instead he wants to go and become an auto mechanic, you know, you might be disappointed. But again, that is his choice or her choice, and it's good that you let them do that and explore what makes them happy and what doesn't make you happy, rather than trying to control them and get all bent out of shape when they don't do what you want them to do. But now there's a fine line. If they're doing something that's dangerous, you don't want them to go to Mexico, for instance, when you've heard of a lot of crime there. Maybe that would be a more important issue to stress your opinion over, but don't be too naggy with them on things that really don't make that much of a difference. It's just a preference that you would like them to do this and they choose to do something else. So kind of you let go of that control, and that works out better for you and for your relationship down the line. Number four, my tip number four might seem not very significant, but yet I think it made a big difference in my life, is when I stopped watching the news. So stop watching the nightly news, because all the news does is show you negative stuff, and oh, what if this happens, and oh, this person is going to do this if he gets elected, and we're going to go to war with this country, and oh no, look at all the mass slaughter that's happening in countries on the other side of the world. Again, it's not great to watch that kind of stuff, especially when it's stuff that's beyond your control. So being exposed to the negativity of the news every single day can make you depressed, and I think it's better to just avoid the news. Maybe watch it every once in a while, but if something big happens in the world, you're going to hear about it without watching the news. It's going to show up on the radio, you're going to hear about it, or your kids are going to call you and say, hey Mom, did you hear what happened? So avoiding watching the news on a regular basis is going to make you happier in the long run. Okay, tip number 5 for your life is to set for yourself achievable goals. They can be small, achievable goals, but according to, I think it was Zig Ziglar who said, success is actually making progress towards a worthy goal. So it doesn't have to be a grand goal. It doesn't have to be, I'm not going to have $10 million by the time I'm 30. I mean, that might be an admirable goal, but that's not really necessary for your pursuit of happiness. Instead, maybe you could make a goal like I'm going to have a job that pays a certain amount per year by the time I'm a certain age, or I'm going to be a master at this hobby that I love. Say you like to build model trains, so I'm going to be able to build this particular train in a couple of months, or I'm going to be able to run a 10K in 6 months, those type of goals. So small achievable goals, and be giving yourself some purpose, something to look forward to, and something to put your efforts for that can make it happier for you. Number 6 is to create healthy lifestyle habits and to take care of yourself and make self-care a priority. When I'm talking about healthy habits, I'm talking about basically developing good eating habits, eating healthy food, avoiding processed food and added sugar, trying to establish a moderate exercise routine, and to make sure you get plenty of sleep and rest, and celebrate successes when you achieve some type of a goal or a milestone. Important to go out and say, hey, look, I did achieve this job that I wanted to, or I did lose 10 pounds in the last 3 months, and go ahead and reward yourself by doing something you enjoy. Maybe I'm going to go watch a movie with a friend, or I'm going to take my daughter out on a trip, or something like that. So develop good lifestyle habits that are healthy and celebrate your successes with some self-care. Number 7 is to develop some techniques that work for you in managing stress, because it's impossible for us to avoid stress in our daily lives. And what's more important is you develop mechanisms for you to handle and manage that stress when it comes up in your life. And of course, important things are the healthy lifestyle that we were just talking about. That will make it easier to manage stress, to avoid using stuff like drinking alcohol or smoking, or bad habits with stress, because that actually doesn't help your stress at all. But if you did something more positive, like going for a walk, or petting your dog, taking your dog to the dog park and throwing the ball. Meditation is very good for managing stress. Developing this mindfulness practices where you're more focused on what's happening right now and not worrying about what might happen in the future. Going out in nature, enjoying a beautiful sunset, standing in the grass barefoot, those types of things. Develop what works good for you to manage stress, because stress will be coming up in your life. There's no avoiding it. And so being able to nip that in the bud before it takes over your life is going to be very important for you to live a happy life. Okay, tip number 8 is to take a look at your life, and if there's something that you are not happy about, you need to make a change and do something different so that you are happy. So I think it was Albert Einstein who said insanity is doing the same thing the same way over and over again and expecting a different result. So if something's going on in your life and you're not happy about, like you don't like your job, or you're not getting along with your spouse, or you don't like where you live, do something to change it. And of course it can be risky, and risk is frightening, but if you calculate the benefits and of the risk, is it worth taking it? And you take a risk, and if it doesn't work out, at least you know it didn't work out. But if you've always been thinking, oh, I don't like it in California, I want to move to Texas, but you never try it, then you don't know. So you do move to Texas and you don't like it, you could always move back, or you could move somewhere else. This is just a hypothetical example. But if you're unhappy with your life, do something, make a change, and then you'll know. Chances are you will be happier, and if not, it's not the end of the world. You can try something else down the line. Okay, tip number 9 is to remember that bad things will happen to you in your life. There's no avoiding it, and guess what? You're not the only person in the world where things happen to. So if something bad happens to you in your life, and it will, remember it's not just you, it happens to everybody, and what's more important is how you react to it. So I don't want to say suck it up when something bad happens, because that's what some of the gurus say. You have to give yourself time to say, you know, this sucks and I'm going to cry about it for a couple of days, but you don't want to live there. You don't want to live there in that depressed, reactive state. You have to give yourself some time, and then you need to get over it and move on and do things to tackle the situation. So I'm going to give you an example from my own life. When I had my first child at actually, it wasn't until he was 2.5 that he was diagnosed with autism, but maybe a year prior to that we knew something was wrong, and the doctors gave us a runaround, and then we eventually got the autism diagnosis. And our first reaction was, why me? Why did this happen to me? Everybody else's kids are normal. Everybody else didn't even try to have kids, and their kids are normal, and my kid has a disability. And it took a long time for me to get over that. The woe is me. Why me? Why did this happen to me? And it's easy for that to do, but it didn't do anything to improve my situation. And eventually I had to get over it, and I had to learn techniques to live with it. I had to learn how to take my son to therapy and to do things for him that would make his outcome or his probability of becoming successful and living on his own as an adult. And I just had to deal with it. I had to suck it up and deal with it, and I had to do research, and I had to connect with other people who were dealing with it. And I still sometimes feel bad, but you couldn't dwell on it. You can't live the rest of your life thinking, why is me? Why is my kid disabled? Because it sucks. But everybody in their life is going to have something that sucks. It's not just you. Some things suck worse than others. So again, I'm sorry when bad things happen to you, to me, to our neighbors, but it does. That is life. Life is just like, remember the game of life that we played when we were a little kid, and you roll a dice and you pick up a card and it says, you know, you're pregnant out of wedlock with twins, you know, that is what the real life is like. So you take these things and you make the best of it, and you try to deal with it the best you can, and that's all you can do. And realize that you're not the only one. Those kind of bad things will happen to everybody, and you have to deal with it, make the best of it, and then just move on. Okay, and my last tip, number 10, is to not worry so much what other people think of you, what other people's opinions are. I remember a long time when I was young, I was like, oh my God, I'm fat. Everyone thinks I'm fat. Oh my God, she's looking at me and she's looking at my stomach. She can tell I gained 10 pounds. And for me to get all worried about what other people think is totally ridiculous. And at the same time, again, it's important to not let those other people, somebody else, be the ones that are responsible for your own validation and self-esteem, right? Like, I shouldn't feel bad because my sister-in-law thinks I'm fat. Who cares what she thinks? I need to do what's best for me. And if I'm uncomfortable being fat, then I need to go on a diet. So again, don't rely on somebody else for your self-esteem. It's very easy, especially when you're married, for instance, to be so concerned about what your husband thinks about you or what your wife thinks about you, that if he is mad at you today, that you're in a bad mood and that you feel crappy about yourself. So it's important to have your own self-validation, like, oh, look, I did great on this project at work, or I did great on this project at school, and feel good yourself without needing your spouse or your brother or your friend to say, oh my gosh, you did fantastic. You know, you need to be able to validate yourself, and you should be responsible for your own self-esteem. So that will make you way happier. And again, other people shouldn't be responsible for your own self-esteem, because they're just struggling to keep themselves afloat without having to worry about how you feel. So again, your feelings, your self-esteem, your validation is your own responsibility, and it's important not to have an external source be responsible for making you feel good about yourself. So that's it. My name is Dawn Dickinson, living your best life. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you do, please do me a favor and hit the thumbs up. Thinking about subscribing to the channel, that would really help me out. I post videos every single week, so I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope to see you back here again next week.